at Virginia Commonwealth University. For those of you who are just joining us, this is our first research panel. On this panel, we will explore visual strategies in health communication. Our speakers are Avery Holton from the University of Utah and Allison Lazard from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Aurora Occa from the University of Miami, Daniel Park and Elizabeth Goering from Indiana University, and Bart, Wojdynski, and Yen E. Lee from the University of Georgia. Each of our speakers will present for about 10 minutes, and you will have a chance to ask questions and discuss the presentations with them at the end. Please post your questions on Twitter using the hashtag VCU Global Health. You can find speaker bios and their Twitter handles on our symposium website, or just simply follow our Center for Media and Health on Twitter at VCUCMH. So let's get started with our first speaker. This paper, titled Representing Cancer, Implicit Communication of Cancer and Gender on Instagram, was written by Avery Holton and Allison Lazard and will be presented by Avery Holton.
Hi everyone. Thanks for that introduction. I'm going to try to operate the screen share. As the first presenter, this is pretty scary stuff, but this should work out just fine. So let's see here. Okay, is that visible to everyone? Hopefully it is. If you can't see this right now, somebody feel free to chime in and let me know. But before I begin, I really wanted to thank Marcus Messner.
1 second. Can you make it full screen?
Let's see. Let's see if it'll work. How's that look?
Hey Avery, you just have to put it into the presentation mode, and then it should play fine. Otherwise, we can see it. It's just in the edit mode right now.
Okay. Is this working?
Can you move the slide?
Nothing? I'll try one more. How about now?
We're not. So the important thing is that you can move from one slide to another, and we'll be able to see it. We're not. I think your slides are moving now, and so it should be fine to present. Yep.
Okay. Terrific. As long as everybody can see it. Again, if somebody can't see it, let me know. So back to where I was. I want to thank Marcus Messner and everyone at Virginia Commonwealth University for hosting this. I think it's a terrific event, an all-day event, and I'm really excited to see all the papers. Second, I'd like to thank my co-author, Allison Lazard, who is a fantastic collaborator and whose mindful and stoic footprint is all over this study. And I'd also like to thank the graduate students who have helped us with this project, Mary Grace Ewald, Tessa Dennis, and Tara O'Connor. And lastly, I'd like to express my admiration for the individuals who've experienced cancer in any way. As you'll see in the images that we've included in the presentation, there are many ordinary folks here who have faced extraordinary challenges. And the aim of this study was to examine, at least in part, how those extraordinary challenges have been captured visually. So with that, I'd like to note that rather than present text accompaniment for this presentation, we've opted to show you some of the images that we've collected for this study. And you'll see a wealth of smiles and support alongside scars and wounds that are still healing. And some images may be uplifting and others may be tragic, so please consider this as sort of a quasi-trigger warning. But remember that all of the images represent people who have chosen to represent themselves, to show themselves to the public, and to possibly share their experiences with cancer through Instagram. So with that, we'll begin. As digital domains and social network sites become more visual and more users turn to platforms such as Instagram to share their life experiences, we've seen a major uptick in the number of people who are using sites such as Instagram. More than 400 million global users are posting more than 60 million daily images to the site as of last month, placing it among the most popular and fastest growing social network sites. Given that Instagram encourages users to post personal photos along with brief content, images representing important life moments such as the birth of a child or experiences with disease and illness have become prevalent. As an example, more than 90 million cancer-related images were posted to Instagram in 2015 alone. For our study, the broad aims are to explore how individuals, including those with cancer diagnoses and familial members, represent cancer, and to also determine if gendered cancers, that is, women are more frequently diagnosed with breast and cervical cancer, men are more frequently diagnosed with testicular and prostate cancer, if those gendered cancers influence ways in which cancer is represented visually on Instagram. While a growing number of media and health communication scholars are examining representations of self and disease on social media, few have focused on visual representations specifically of cancer on Instagram. And none to date, at least that we have found, have explored the possible role of gender and gendered cancers. So some brief background, some brief literature notes. A growing body of health communication research is focused on the role of social media in conveying complex health information as well as related social and emotional exchanges related to that information. While many social network sites themselves have plateaued in terms of growth, those with visual components such as Instagram continue to draw more users. And as I noted earlier, they've grown from modest numbers in 2013 to more than 400 million users as of today. That number was 408 million. More than half of those users, interestingly, are from outside of the United States, making the platform ripe for a more globalized analysis. Given the popularity of the platform and its function as a visual portal for individuals, as well as its communal function wherein hashtags allow users to follow one another and to follow other users, its importance in health communication deserves attention. And as images shared and consumed implicitly contribute to social constructions and meanings associated with health, some research has suggested that self-representations, or selfies as we call them, tell us quite a bit about people and their experiences, though often through rose-colored lenses. So to borrow a line from Kurt Vonnegut, on social media we can pretend to be other people, and we pretend to be who we may not exactly be. So we provide representations of what we want others to see, whether those are positive or negative. When it comes to images themselves, media images function as integral nonverbal symbols in a social practice that influence cultural expectations of individuals, objects, and experiences. Indeed, visual imagery embedded in media messages can impact our attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors well beyond the scope of the product advertised or the selfie that we put out there. And these images convey meaning about roles in society through depictions of humans, including our own selves, that implicitly communicate multi-level meanings that can be decoded and perhaps embodied by other people. Specifically, and as a good example, the portrayal of women in advertisements along with their male counterparts has been shown to perpetuate stereotypical gender relations. Leading researchers critically analyze the power of advertising imagery to socially construct and define gender roles and relations. As specifically, Irving Goffman believed that advertisements created beliefs and illustrated myths that male and female relationships function much like parent and child relationships. Through his gendered advertising model for decoding and analyzing carefully posed imagery in advertising, researchers have demonstrated that these pseudo-reality creations influence the real world through rituals and gesture adoption by people in everyday life, and that includes Instagram. User-generated imagery, taken private and shared publicly, is also a social practice. Whether consciously constructed to reflect the portrayals rampant in advertising or not, images shared on social media, again including Instagram, are situated in a media landscape that continues to define expected roles and behavior in life situations, including living with and through cancer diagnoses. But in the absence of a human's physical form, actually being there and being present, how a subject is portrayed communicates critical social nonverbal cues. So as we move from the physical space to the image, or in this case a digital image, many of the nonverbal cues are processed as they would be in the physical world, which means that self-representations inherently convey an additional layer of social context and meaning for social interaction. So when viewing an image, the audience becomes sort of the second half of a social interaction. And sometimes an integral second half, when the images display close-up portrayals with the subject looking straight into the camera, or other times from an outside observer, like a third party looking in on a social scene to see where the key subjects do or don't look. So when users post images of themselves on social media, they invite their social networks and public audiences to engage with their representation on a continuum that ranges from intimate to distal through proxemics, point of view, and gaze direction. So for us, considering representations and self-representations through the digital lens of Instagram, we chose to employ an analysis of user-generated images, some of which you're seeing here, collected via constructed weeks over the period of September 1, 2014 through September 1, 2015. So our 2 constructed weeks produced 14 randomized days for collection. We used GramFeed, which I encourage everyone to check out. It's an open source search tool designed to draw samples from particular hashtags and keywords, and it also allows for searches by dates, times, users, and so forth. Our samples over those 14 days were drawn at 3 times. Those were 8 a.m., 12 p.m., and 5 p.m., all Mountain Time, for each of those 14 days. And we performed 3 different searches within each of those times, each day, looking specifically for cancers that were male-dominated, again, testicular and prostate cancer, female-dominated, breast and cervical cancer, and then also cancers that we considered more neutral without gendered representations. And for this, we didn't necessarily plug in lung cancer, skin cancer. We simply used the keyword cancer. For each search, the first 4 images and their connected content were collected, resulting in approximately 12 images per collection, 36 images per day, and 504 images total. So scrubbing of the sample when we discarded duplicates and reshared posts, posts that represented advertisements or posts with unclear images, which happens quite a lot, resulted in a final sample size for us of 408 images that broke down into 136 male-oriented images, 138 female-oriented images, and 134 images that were initially classified as neutral. And guided by previous research, the primary researchers, that's Allison Lazard and myself, developed a coding scheme that included a number of variables, of which I'll just very briefly touch on, given the time. Those included gendered representations, so those were coded using an adapted version of Goffman's gendered advertising model, which included items for 5 key dimensions, including relative size, feminine touch, function ranking, ritualization of subordination, and license withdrawal. And I realize here that I'm sort of flying through these, but if anybody has questions or wants me to expand on any of these, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm also more than happy to share our actual code book with anybody that'd like to see that. We also coded for proxemics, point of view, and gaze direction. And these can be a little tricky to code for, but proxemics was coded through camera distance, which included extreme close-ups, other close-ups, medium shots, and long shots. Point of view was coded by determining if the actual subject, the main subject, had the camera looking down on them, if they were looking up, or if they tried to have the camera at sort of a neutral, on-level direction. Gaze direction was coded, again, for the primary subject with coding options of unable to see the eyes, seeing the eyes as pointed at the camera or pointed away from the camera. It's important to note, too, that our codebook coding scheme looked at additional types of cancer, primary subjects, secondary subjects, sentiment conveyed by the images, demographic information, if we could collect that, emotional or informational support functions, and various other characteristics such as scarring, tones employed, filters, and those sorts of things that we plan to develop into other studies. For coding, we have 3 research assistants who have gone through multiple levels of training and have gone through an initial stage of ICR with our sample that worked out fairly well. So to give you an idea of what we found to this point, we do not have complete coding, but we do have some partial coding that shows a significant difference between 2 gender-susceptible cancers for feminine touch, where an individual touching him or herself was more common in female-susceptible cancers than male-susceptible cancers. There's also a significant difference in self-portrayals when the individual was laying on a bed or a couch, so sort of in a supine position. The susceptible gender was the gender shown lying in the respective categories, but females were shown or show themselves lying more often than males. Males tended to be standing, providing a thumbs up, as you see in this image. And a few of the images where size could be determined, there was a difference, although not significant at this point, between gender cancers for males as taller, as closer to the camera, as sort of larger, and females as smaller and in some ways thinner than their male counterparts. Finally, and this is the last section, the camera distances included the range of all proximic zones for female and male susceptible cancers with similar distributions. It's notable, though, that most of the self-portrayals, about 82%, were at the personal or social distance. And while most self-representations, about 75%, had a camera angle that held a point of view, even with the subject and viewer, there was still a small trend that differing camera angles may align with gender-susceptible cancers. Specifically, camera angles that look down on the individual were more common in female susceptible cancers than male susceptible cancers, while camera angles where viewers look up to the individuals were found in male susceptible cancers more often than female susceptible cancers. The last finding that I want to point out here too is the majority of self-representations, more than 2/3, show us an individual making direct eye contact, such as the one we see here, either with the viewer or the camera angle, so looking directly into the camera. And these self-portrayals where the individual looks into the camera were far more frequent than those where they look away. So this shows us that some folks, and this is a good example too, somebody that's looking more at their camera, tend to remove themselves from focus, while others focus head-on with the viewer. So in particular, female susceptible cancers actually tended to look away quite a bit more. Here we see a male-oriented cancer, and here we see a scar, but here we see a sort of an aberration in this case, with a female looking directly at the camera, as opposed to this image, which is quite striking, as well as this image, where we get differing views of women. So at this point, we're still diving pretty deep into the data, but we're seeing some pretty extraordinary results that align quite a bit with what Goffman earlier posited, but that also break away with that. In particular, a vast showing of scars to help destigmatize cancer, and some breakaway, at least at the qualitative level, from this sort of heroing of cancer and survivalism to more of a social support instrument, particularly on Instagram. Thank you.
Thanks. Our second speaker is Aurora Occa from the University of Miami, who will present on a textual analysis of HPV vaccine educational videos targeting adolescents on YouTube.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, let me share the screen. And let me go up. Okay. No? Okay. Can you hear the PowerPoint? Can you see, sorry, the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce today my research. So before to start, why HPV and why these projects in particular? So first of all, HPV, or human papilloma virus, is the most common sexually transmitted disease in the world. It has been calculated that around 20 million of Americans are affected each year, and worldwide the percentage of people who will get HPV at least once is around from 50 to 60%. So HPV is a particularly nasty virus because it's the principal cause of several sexual diseases, from the genital warts to cervical cancer, for example, but also penile cancers or anal cancers. Eradicating HPV is particularly difficult for several reasons. First of all, there are different types of HPV virus. Some are innocuous, some are particularly harmful. And people may be infected, but they may not even know that they are infected, or they may see the symptoms after several months after the infections. So this makes HPV particularly dangerous for the population, but fortunately, it can be prevented. How? Towards a vaccination, simple vaccination that has been developed quite recently. There are two vaccines which are available, Gardasil and Cervarix. So these vaccines are normally recommended to young women and young men from children. For women, it's from age 9 to age 26. For male, it's a little bit shorter, the frame. I guess it's still from age 9, but till age, if I'm correct, 18. So why focusing on adolescents in particular? First of all, because the vaccine is recommended for their age, and secondly, and most importantly, because this vaccine aims to help people prevent HPV infection. So it is better to tackle the disease before it spreads, before people are infected. Thus, during their adolescence is a good time. In addition, this vaccine is free of charge for females under the age of 19, and also another reason why adolescents are particularly interesting, or at least for this project, is because they tend to be less aware of the option available. So it is important to educate them about the opportunity to get the vaccine. So the other reason why I decided to develop these projects in this way and focusing on video is because, according to previous research, videos are an effective tool to reach adolescents and inform them about general health issues, not just about HPV, but HPV prevention through video has shown to be potentially helpful. In addition, videos can have an impact on several factors that normally are associated to behavioral change. Videos are able to manipulate emotions and reduce people's stress. And so this is why they are particularly effective. Also can be very cost-effective to spread videos. And another very important factor is that adolescents tend to use social media a lot for connecting with friends, but also for search for information. And videos can be easily spread on all social media platforms. So I decided for my analysis, to rely on two theories to guide me in the analysis, which are the communication accommodation theory, which examines the motivation and consequences of the communication between two speakers. In the case of videos, the communication in between people who watch the video and the characters who are portrayed in the video. The other theory that I'm using for my analysis is the health-belief model, which helps explain how individuals' perception, barriers or factors can affect people's perception of a disease, and thus this theory is helpful to guide researchers on how to develop interventions to better address eventual barriers or problems that people may encounter and help people overcome this. So, from considering these premises and the theoretical background, I formulated two research questions. The first one is about the nature of the information currently available for adolescents on YouTube, which is the most widely used platform to upload video, and the video from YouTube can be spread throughout all the social media. So this information will specifically regard to HPV vaccines. The second research question is about the verbal and nonverbal behaviors portrayed in the videos to communicate with female adolescents in particular about HPV vaccine. So the method that I use is the textual analysis. So I conducted a research using several keywords on YouTube in order to find my videos. And the keywords that result to be most effectively, most useful for this purpose were HPV prevention, HPV vaccine for girls, and HPV education. It was surprising that from all these keywords and other words that I use in three languages, English, Spanish, and Italian, I could only find 4 videos. This data collection was done in May 2015. The situation may be a little bit different right now, but in May 2015, only 4 videos were available. And all the videos were in English. And they were all designed and ideated to have animations. The videos ranged from 1 minute 26 to 5 minutes 33. So here I have for you some images from the videos. The first video showed a child writing information about the human papillomavirus, and in addition there was an animated character that you can see down the 3 images on the right of the presentation, a female girl, which was mimicking the information written by the hand. It is not clear if the hand was of a boy, of a girl. It is the person is wearing a blue shirt, so it's not a typical female color or associated to female communication, but all the other features are really showing that this video is prevalently directed to the female audience. So there were no people nor external voice presenting the information. There was just the music in the background, and people could read information as they appear in the screen. So the second video is slightly different. The protagonist, the main character, is still a female. And in this case, the situation is different because people could read the information directly below the images, but there were two voices, a female voice and a male voice, presenting all the information. The style of the discussion was very didactic. So there were information, they were explained, and the main character, was showing the emotion and trying to communicate to their interlocutor, to the people that are watching the video, by showing their disgust to some image, or their concern, or even happiness or relief in the case of information, above all in the end of the video. The third video is different from these previous two videos because instead of having just one main character, it portrays a conversation between three main characters. So this is the video with the longest one and the highest technical complexity among the present. And this is as a form of entertainment education, and they were using a storytelling approach. The last video that I use as my sample, it differentiates itself from the others because in here case we have the presence of male characters too. The background is natural gray, and in this video there were some animations of direct behaviors or specific animation of the behaviors who may be dangerous and may lead to HPV infections. So what was interesting across this first video is that all the characters portrays are animations that are not real human beings interacting. And all the animations look like adolescents, which are directly communicating with the observer and are trying to mimicking behaviors and emotion that could be typical of adolescents receiving this information. All the characters tend to look worried and scared when receiving information about HPV, and then look more relief when they're receiving information about the vaccine. The tone of the conversation changed too, depending on the information provided. And there was no voice, as was said in video 1, in video 2 and video 4, different alternative voice, explanatory, more didactic. And the third video, this one I was talking about, it's the only one using an entertainment strategy. So, it is blocked? Okay, here we go. Regarding the content provided through the videos, all the videos are consistent in providing an introduction about the nature of HPV and the type of infection that it can spread. All the videos show to cover the dimensions recommended or suggested by the health belief model. So, for example, susceptibility. We have in video 4 persons which are saying it has been estimated that 4 out of 5 people will get HPV infection at some stage of their life, showing this susceptibility. That means people, the target audience, adolescents, can be affected by this disease. The perceived severity, the HPVs can lead to other symptoms and most seriously to cervical cancer. Or the barriers. And this was very interesting because the videos were talking about physical barriers, like for example, the pain that people can feel where accessing vaccine. This was considered a barrier to the behavior, the auspiciated behavior getting a vaccine, or they could even experience fears in some case. But videos, in particular video 3, focus also on other possible barriers, which are psychological in nature, like for example the embarrassment that adolescents could experience when talking about sexual disease or HPV vaccination, and that was a very important aspect of the conversation. So, regarding self-efficacy and cues of actions, all the video recommends to adolescents in general and female adolescents in particular the use of the vaccine. So asking for a vaccine as a good way to prevent HPV or accessing the vaccine. So they were providing information on how to get the vaccine, for example, go to the doctor. They were showing directly to adolescents the characters going to the doctor asking for the vaccinations. In none of the video, the adolescents were communicating with the parents. This video were just focusing on adolescents or female characters going directly to the doctor or talking with friends, so with the peer component. This video shows that a general attempt to educate adolescents about HPV prevention and HPV vaccine in particular. Again, all the videos use animated characters instead of real people. The main audience of these videos show it to be females. So even if in the beginning I searched for videos addressing all adolescents, both male and female, the videos show to be mostly directed to a female audience, with the exception of the last video, video 4 that I show you, which is introducing male adolescents too. So possible future research may be addressed to involve and engage male adolescents to developing, for example, videos directed to this audience, but also providing materials that could be used from people with different backgrounds from the American one. For example, people speaking different languages beside English. The characters, it was good to notice that were designed to look like adolescents, and this could help adolescents break the barriers that may be associated with talking about this topic. And it was also positive to notice that all the videos were providing exhaustive information about both HPV and HPV prevention. Sometimes they were used technical terms, and that may be beneficial to substitute. So for the next steps, it will also be possible to test other messages. This was just a description of what's available on YouTube, but it would be interesting to retrieve more data or to develop future intervention in really testing these messages and see what's working best with this audience. So for now, it's all. If you're interested, you can write me or ask me questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Aurora. Just a reminder that all of these papers will be available for download on the symposium website using the password VCU Global Health. Also, to join the discussion, you can tweet questions using the hashtag VCU Global Health. For our next paper, it was co-written by Daniel Park and Elizabeth Goering. This paper is titled The Health-Related Uses and Gratifications of YouTube, Motive, Cognitive Involvement, Online Activity, and Sense of Empowerment, and it will be presented by both researchers.
I hope you can all hear me. The theme of this year's symposium invites us to reflect on the ways in which mobile and social media are used to communicate about health. And already we've seen lots of good examples of that. The opening session that talked about how social media can be used to promote global health, the papers we just heard about how it can be used to communicate identity and to raise awareness about specific diseases or specific health situations. Indeed,
Elizabeth?
Yes.
We can't see your presentation. It's showing us the last slide right now.
Okay. What are we doing wrong?
We saw it was on the last slide.
Yeah, we saw it. It was just on the last slide. It was on the discussion slide.
Screen share. Okay, tell us what you're doing.
Okay, if you, that's if you can say something so the video comes to you, we can see it a little bigger.
Okay, can you get it now?
If you can move to the second slide right quick so we can see that it will work.
Is that working?
No, you're on the first slide.
I've moved through several of them already.
If you go if you go and use Alt-Tab and you go to the other PowerPoint window that you might have open, then that might work. So just do an Alt-Tab and go to the other with the Tab key to the other PowerPoint.
What is it?
Could you please explain one more?
You can just put your PowerPoint into presentation mode, so that we see the full screen, that you see the full screen. Let me know when you have that.
Can you see it?
Yes, and now you should go to Alt, press the Alt key and the Tab key, and then go to the PowerPoint window so that it displays full screen on your desktop.
Tab.
Is that helpful?
No. So I think you should exit the presentation mode. On your Google Hangout, you should have a something that you can press and say End Sharing.
Okay.
Okay, and so now pull up your PowerPoint. So don't share. Pull up your PowerPoint and then put it in presentation mode, so that as if you were presenting it on a screen in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then go Alt and Tab. So you should only be seeing the PowerPoint on your screen now, and press Alt and Tab, and then go back to the Google Hangout.
And now try sharing.
And then go to Screen Share, to the green button on the left, and you share the desktop. And then press one of the arrow keys right now so we can see. You could go to the second slide. Yep, there you go. Go back and you're ready to go.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Speaking of the value of technology, right? Anyway, as I was saying, I think that the topic that we're talking about at this conference is a very, very important topic. In fact, many people do use the internet for health-related purposes. According to a Pew Foundation study and a Fox and Dugan report, 59% of all adults in the United States use the internet to look for health information, and 72% of all internet users use the internet to look for health information. Our focus looks at one particular social media, and that is YouTube. So it fits very well with the paper that we just heard with Aurora's research on HPV. There has been quite a bit of research that has looked at YouTube as a mechanism for communicating information about health concerns, including HPV vaccine, as we just heard as well. Also, there's research that looks at social support and the way that YouTube has been used to provide social support, and the way in which it's been used to disseminate information about everything from organ donation to tonsillectomies to cardiac devices. Unfortunately, there hasn't been very much research that looks at the motivations behind the use of YouTube. And this is unfortunate, because the more we know about why people use YouTube, I think the better equipped we will be to communicate in ways that promote health and wellness. So in some ways, our paper is a bit of the outlier in this panel. We're not really looking at the visual images themselves that are communicated through YouTube. We're looking at the motivations for the use of YouTube for health-related purposes. The theoretical framework that we've chosen to use is uses and gratifications theory. I'm assuming many of you are familiar with this theory already. It provides a useful framework for understanding why people use particular medias, what specific needs they're gratifying through the use of particular media. And it focuses on three components in particular: the motives for media use. In our case, we're interested in why is it that people access health information through YouTube. The theory also looks at involvement with media content. And for our purposes, we're interested in how users process health information they access through YouTube. What is their cognitive involvement with the messages they receive, and do they elaborate on them? And what is their post-exposure activity related to the messages? Do they leave messages? Do they engage in online conversations after they've seen a YouTube video? And finally, the third aspect that's looked at through uses and gratifications theory is satisfaction with media use. And for our purposes, we're conceptualizing that as the sense of empowerment that accompanies media use. So in other words, if you're watching YouTube videos, does that give you a sense of perceived control? Does it give you a sense of perceived competence that you would know how to take care of yourself in terms of health? And does it lead to goal internalization, and that is feeling enthusiastic about goals related to good health care? This is the theoretical framework illustrated in picture form, in graphic form, that we were testing in this project. And there are 4 research questions that are related to the project. The first one is we're interested in what are the motives for health-related YouTube use by non-health professionals. The second research question is what are the motives for that use related to cognitive involvement? The third research question, what are the motives related to post-exposure online activity? And then how do all 3 of those work together to create that sense of empowerment that I was talking about? To answer these questions, we designed a survey that we distributed to college students. The survey instrument consisted of items that operationalized our variables that were adapted from existing instruments. And this slide shows you which instruments we adapted from and gives you an example of an item that we included in our instrument. So for example, to assess motives for health-related YouTube use, we relied heavily on the work of Rubin and modified the questions to fit YouTube in particular. So the example, I utilized YouTube for health-related reasons to get information for free. The 3 sense of empowerment variables are described in this slide, where you can see that we relied heavily on the work of Menon and psychological health empowerment scale, adapting it then for the purpose of YouTube. We collected the results from college students. There were a total of 368 students who completed the survey. Of those 368 respondents, 263 reported that they use YouTube to get health information, which interestingly is almost exactly identical with that 72% of internet users using the internet for health purposes that I reported earlier. This slide shows the demographics of the 263 YouTube users that we used as our actual sample for the study. You can see that it was about even male and female, largely first-year students, average age of 21. The data analysis that we completed on the surveys were factor analysis to answer research question 1, and Pearson product moment correlations and hierarchical multiple regression to answer research questions 2 through 4. Control variables were the user's age, gender, and education level. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel, who will tell you what we found.
Okay. As this figure shows, the data analysis revealed specific motives for health-related YouTube use and a significant relationship among the variables. Regarding research question 1, the factor analysis revealed 4 motives that explains 56% of the total variance, such as social utility, convenient information seeking, habit passing time, and exciting entertainment motives. Social utility motive consisted of 17 items related to utilizing YouTube to discuss health information with others or to exchange social support for coping with health-related concerns. Convenient information-seeking motive consisted of 7 items related to utilizing YouTube because it is easy and free to search for specific health information. Habit passing time motive consisted of 7 items related to looking for health-related content on YouTube to pass time or as a habit. Exciting entertainment motive consisted of 3 items related to looking for health-related content on YouTube because it is exciting, fun, and enjoyable. Regarding research question 2, 3, and 4, hierarchical multiple regression analysis revealed a significant relationship among the motives for health-related YouTube use, cognitive involvement with health information on YouTube, post-exposure online activity, and 3 dimensions of the sense of empowerment regarding healthcare. Throughout this presentation, blue lines in the figure mean the positive relationship between variables, and red lines mean the negative one. Social utility motive and convenient information-seeking motive were positively related to cognitive involvement, and cognitive involvement was positively related to perceived control. These findings indicate that users who utilize YouTube for searching for specific health information or communicating the information with others are likely to feel they have enough resources for healthcare when they think health information on YouTube supplements their prior knowledge about healthcare and helps them make more informed decision-making on healthcare. Convenient information-seeking motive was positively related to perceived competence. This finding indicates that users who utilize YouTube for searching for specific health information are likely to feel knowledgeable about healthcare, given that they would benefit from the vast amount of free health information available on YouTube. Social utility motive was negatively related to perceived competence. This finding indicates that users who utilize YouTube for communicating health information with others are not likely to feel knowledgeable about healthcare, given that discussing a myriad of health information on YouTube may make them feel difficulties in clearly discerning which information is informative or not. In this regard, the vast amount of health information on YouTube could serve as a double-edged sword in empowering users in healthcare. Habit or passing time motive was negatively related to goal internalization. This finding indicates that users who utilize YouTube to pass time or as a habit are not likely to feel enthusiastic about good healthcare, given that they may not have specific health-related concerns for coping with. Convenient information-seeking motive and exciting entertainment motive were positively related to goal internalization. These findings indicate that users who feel it is easy or enjoyable to search for specific health information on YouTube are likely to feel motivated for good healthcare. Regarding the findings, existing literature has indicated that visual aids for complex health information such as picture system or animation are helpful in better understanding of the information. Considering that the findings could be interpreted as video features of health information on YouTube could help users more interested in good healthcare by enabling them to easily and enjoyably understand the information. Although social utility motive and convenient information-seeking motive were positively related to post-exposure online activity, post-exposure online activity was not related to the sense of empowerment regarding healthcare. These findings indicate that once users figure out health information on YouTube is misleading or detrimental through additional online activities, such as finding more credible information from other online sources, they are not likely to feel empowered in healthcare as a result of health-related YouTube use. So this study examined what motivates users to utilize YouTube for health-related reasons, how users cognitively and behaviorally process health information on YouTube, and whether or not users feel empowered in healthcare as a result of health-related YouTube use. And the findings provide empirical evidence that YouTube could not only facilitate health communication among users, but also help them feel empowered in healthcare. Especially given that convenient information-seeking motive and exciting entertainment motive were positively related to goal internalization, first implication is that video features of health information on YouTube could help users more interested in good healthcare by enabling them to easily and enjoyably understand the information. Therefore, we recommend health professionals and organizations to actively create health-related content with visual aids on YouTube and share it with users. In doing so, users, especially those with limited health literacy, could feel more motivated for and better pursue the goals of good healthcare through better understanding of important information about their health and healthcare. On the other hand, given that social utility motive was negatively related to perceived competence, second implication is that the vast amount of health information on YouTube where misleading information and informative information coexist may hinder users from being empowered in healthcare. Therefore, we recommend health professionals and organizations to support users by actively creating health promotion channels on YouTube and sharing more accurate health information with users. In addition, actively filtering misleading information on YouTube, such as by doing flagging, is recommended to prevent users from having misperceptions of healthcare. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last speakers for this panel are Bart Wojdynski and Yen-E Lee from the University of Georgia. They will be presenting on their paper titled Effects of Photographic and Textual Framing and Nutritional Messages on Visual Attention Recall and Persuasion.
All right. Hi, everyone. Let's try this screen share. Is that? It's on. All right. Let's see if this will work. You guys see us now?
Yeah, can you go to the next slide so we can make sure we see that? Yep.
Should I switch to presentation mode, or is this okay?
Try.
All right.
Try to switch to presentation mode.
How's that?
Now,
okay. All right, ready to go?
It's not in presentation mode.
It's not.
Did you try to go to the next slide to see if it even?
All right. How do I go to view presentation? Presenter view. Let me try this again. Is that working?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, let's do it in regular mode. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm Bart Wojdynski, and Yen-E Lee is with me as well. We're going to split up the presentation. We're going to be presenting some work we did last year, based on some research we conducted in our eye tracking lab here, the Digital Media Attention and Cognition Lab, where Yenny's been working with me for a couple of semesters. And so really what we looked at in the study was trying to break apart. There's been obviously a lot of research in health communication has been done on the effects of framing health messages in terms of gains and losses. And we wanted to tease that out because most of the individual studies and the meta-analyses have looked primarily at what happens when you manipulate text to frame something in terms of gains and losses. And we thought there was a lot more going on in some of these heavily visual health messages that we look at. So Yenny's going to walk you through sort of the setup for the study, and then we'll switch over to discuss the results.
Okay. So now, before this study, usually we main focus on the framing theory, and then to get like Gendel's framing in the health message, and also how this text and visual framing in the health message, and to look at how can influence people's intention behavior of reducing diet soda. And why do we choose diet soda? Because we know there are many research already shown they have a lot of negative consequence of the consuming diet soda, but why people still consume it? And then we think about whether the image, this framing strategy can get more people attention, and then change their behavior. So now, based on the framing theory, and we found actually they have like a Gendel's framing and also like the text and visual framing on the health message. So first, based on the Gendel's framing, many studies have been shown that the Gen framing has been a more significant effect on the people's prevention behavior. So, such as can persuade them to put more sunscreen protection, protect their skin, and those framing have more significant effects on the people's detective behavior. So, for example, have more significant persuasive effects on their HIV texting. So, and also when we look at the text and the image framing, and we found some studies have been shown the image actually have a more significant effects on conveying the emotion, and also can have more like greater impacts on people's recall for the image contents. And also some study. But when we look at this text and image framing, we found most of the study they systematically isolated or manipulate this image only, but not the context. So we wonder how this, because when we look at this health image, we couldn't kind of like just separate either image or content. So this makes us wonder how this the whole whole pictures for the health message, including a text and image content, which one can have more like the significant effects on the people's health behavior. And also, we know every health message, the purpose for every health message is to persuade people change their behavior, and then and also influence their intention. So when we look at this, the link between the message framing and also behavior and the intention, we found actually there are two primary mechanisms have been shown in the studies. So the first mechanism is affective reaction. So, and also such as people feel fear of fear, and then also the second mechanism is more like people evaluate the severity and susceptibility, and then so for the affective reaction, actually most of study they manipulate the message characteristic and then also psychological states, and they also connect this fear appeal with a loss framing. And however, we also find some inconsistent findings. So, for example, the message with a negative outcome can increase people more attention, and fear arousal leads to people have a different results of processing information, but no differences between the fear arousal and the information process. These are direct relationship. So, based on this literature review, and then we have the four research questions and one hypothesis were proposed. And the first research question, we look at the relationship between the text framing, image framing, and the perceived fear. And then the second research question, we look at the relationship between the text framing, image framing, and the perceived severity. And also the third research question, we look at the relationship between the image with gain loss framing, text gain loss framing, and the attention to the slide content. And the fourth research question, we look at the relationship between the attention to the image and text, and also the recall of the content. And also based on the previous study, we know many of the study they connect the fear appeal with the loss framing. So we also have the one hypothesis to test whether this still have a significant finding in our study. So we look at the image with we hypothesis image with a loss framing have a greater perceived fear than loss framing. So before we go to some detail about our method part, here is just some example to show to everyone how the slideshow have been conducted. So this is an example for the one slideshow when to show the participants. So each participant, when they go to a lab, and then they will see this online health news slideshow. And then we consistently include the title. They have the 8 reasons to cut diet soda consumption. So this 8 reasons include weight loss, diabetes, heart disease, headache, hangover, kidney health, cells damage, and depression. So each slideshow, we will focus on the one reason, and each reason participant can see the image and also the text information. And also, participant can just choose, click the previous and next, so look at the slideshow back and forth by themselves. And this is another example for how we manipulate this textual gain loss framing. So this is one example for the one reason why you need to reduce diet soda consumption, because it can help you to reduce depression. So for the gain framing, we say the benefits for the reducing diet soda, because you can reduce the risk of depression. And for the loss framing, we use the way if you continue increase the diet soda, it will increase your risk of depression. And also, this slide show you some example about our image gain loss framing example. So on the left side is a gain frame the image. So it show you, okay, if you reduce diet soda, you can lose weight and you can have the more healthy heart. And then on the right side, it show you the negative consequence if you continue to consume the diet soda. So you will have the gain weight and also have the it will harm you like the heart. So briefly about the method. So this is a 2x2 between subject experiment design. And so when participants came to our lab, at the beginning they will complete a briefly eye track calibration procedure. We want to make sure this eye track can capture the people's this eye movements. And also after that, participants will complete some short pre-test survey, and then after that they will read each online slideshow. And after they finish reading this online slideshow, they will answer some post-test question, and then the whole procedure will be completed, finished. And then our dependent variable include perceived severity, perceived fear, and then also intention reduce soda consumption, and also visual attention. So.
All right, so and thanks, Yanni. So I'll go ahead and guide you guys through the results. We're still wrestling with some of the eye tracking data, but we've crunched a lot of the raw numbers. There are a few areas in the eye tracking data in which the eye tracking data is non-normally distributed, and we've been trying to figure out what the best transformation is to proceed. But I'll show you. I'll talk about that on the next slide. So our first research question, and also our only hypothesis, had to do with the effects of images on perceived fear. And indeed, our hypothesis was supported that image framing actually did have a significant effect on participants' reported level of perceived fear, so that people that saw loss-framed images reported being more fearful of the consequences of diet soda consumption than people who saw the gain-framed images. The effect of text was not significant. So it actually it approached significance also with loss framing being higher, but it was basically so somewhere around p is 0.10. So images but not text affected perceived fear. However, when we go on to the second research question, and looking at the dependent measure of perceived severity, we actually found the opposite effect. So changing the text of the slide to actually describe negative consequences as opposed to positive consequences, that's what affected people's perceptions of severity of the consequences. When you framed them in a negative light, people thought the consequences were more severe, although both of these were high, but you guys can see the means there, about 7.66 versus 6.70. And there was no significant effect of image framing on perceived severity. So sort of images affected the fear pathway, text affected the severity pathway. When it came to attention and recall, we looked at attention in a couple of different ways. So we actually subdivided that dependent measure into attention summed across the 8 slides to the area of the slideshow that contained text, attention summed across the 8 slides to the area of the slideshow that contained the images, and sort of combined attention measure. And out of those 3 DVs, we conducted a MANOVA. Only one of them had a significant effect, either for image framing or text framing. In this case, it was a significant effect for image framing, oddly enough, on attention to the text. So when the image being presented was a loss-framed image, people paid more attention to the text on the slide, regardless of sort of the language used in the text itself, the framing of the text. So we thought that was sort of interesting. It's nearly double the attention. This is fixation duration here. They were on the slide a little bit longer, but that's total fixation duration. Research question 4 actually looked at recall. Recall in this case was operationalized simply in terms of the number of different reasons out of the 8 in the slideshow that they could recall to drop diet soda consumption. And in this case, we did find that image framing, so image gain loss framing predicted recall, and this is actually the one effect where gain framing anything led to more significant outcomes than loss framing. So gain framed images, people actually remembered more of the potential positive consequences they could receive from cutting their diet soda consumption than when the images were loss framed. Lastly, we looked at sort of the effects of these 2 pathways, perceived fear and perceived severity, obviously controlling for our IVs as well, on intent to decrease soda consumption. And we did this analysis actually straight up, and we also did it as a covariate, their existing diet soda consumption. The results were more or less the same. So here it is presented without the covariate. Having a greater perceived fear of consequences didn't actually have any relationship to decreasing soda consumption, but perceiving the consequences of diet soda consumption is more severe, or soda consumption is more severe, actually did have a strong effect. So perceived severity, basically all the effects of image and text framing were mediated through perceived severity, which in this case was specifically the effect of images, loss framed images leading to greater loss frame text leading to greater perceived severity, and then perceived severity leading to greater intent to decrease soda consumption. So just some discussion points. The study sort of provided a more nuanced understanding of how gain-framed and loss-framed images work. If you look at the major meta-analyses, the stuff that O'Keefe and Jensen have done, they'll even say that they looked at all these studies that had kind of applied this prospect theory model to preventive and detective health behaviors, and none of them systematically manipulated images. A few of them manipulated images only in the context of manipulating everything else together. So we think our study is one of the first to actually orthogonally manipulate images and text. We found that the content of the images can make a big difference, because seeing visual examples of those harms seems to potentially make them more concrete. It definitely seemed to have participants had an affective reaction to seeing those harms up there. But there also was this interesting finding that seeing the scarier versions of the images up there led them to pay more attention to the text. So if driving message consumers to the text so they can understand specific risks, other things that they may not know, if someone's doing a social marketing health campaign motivated by information consumption, then perhaps fear appeals through images is a good way to go. I think this also can help explain why images in online news can be a key determinant of selection of content. Right? We know that manipulating images leads people to steer towards clicking on stories to view them significantly. Bucher and Schumacher found that in 2006, and so that emotional pathway could be part of the explanation here. The surprising finding was that only perceived severity, but not fear, actually predicted participants' intent to reduce diet soda consumption. I don't know if that's idiosyncratic of the message. Obviously, we are only looking at this one health topic here and only this one slideshow. It's not a communicable disease. It's not even one of those sort of risk-inducing behaviors that people think about a lot specifically. But we did find that maybe people were newly informed about some of the risks involved with soda consumption here. So I think the findings imply that health message campaign designers should really consider both of these kinds of manipulations of messages, perhaps with different ends. If they're going through really trying to scare people into action, which we know can occasionally backfire, although the findings on that are iffy, for the most part it's actually still pretty effective to get people to be fearful. Images is the way to go. If you're trying to actually get people to process the information and read about new risks, perhaps text framing is the way to go, and you can also use these in combination. All right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much to Bart and Yenny Lee, and all of our presenters. We now have time for a couple of questions from the audience and Twitter. Scott and Candace, do you guys have some questions for us?
Yes, we do. Thank you. We'll start off with a question for Avery Bolton. Were the majority of Instagram posts from those affected directly with cancer, or posts from the caregivers?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So we initially aimed at getting just selfie images, and in that we found that a lot of those selfie images, actually came from advocacy sites, health organizations, and also familial representatives, so family members, friends, things like that. What we ultimately wound up doing in scrubbing the data and getting more to what we wanted to examine was pulling out any health organizations, any advertising agencies, any advocacy groups, and really sticking to individuals, and that includes familial members. So we have a code in for that to look specifically at if the subject and the poster themselves was a family member, or if they were a friend, if we can tell that, or if they were actually the individual going through the cancer experience. And thus far, and again, not with our full sample coded, we're looking at about somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 75% are direct posts from individuals with direct experience with cancer, and then the other 25% tend to be majority from, at least from what we can tell, either close friends or relatives.
All right, thank you. Next question is for Aurora Occa. Can you talk about the organizations, whether they're pharmaceuticals or nonprofit organizations or whatever, that produced videos for YouTube?
Okay, so these videos were produced by several actors. Some, like the first one, was from an organization going to develop the campaign, and the other one, the second, I guess, was from the public health in Canada, and one was produced with the Animator Disney. So there are several actors who are actually producing and working on the development of this video, not just pharmaceutical companies. So it was not about the promotion of the vaccine itself, because all the videos were not promoting one of the two vaccines. They were promoting the effects of getting vaccinated. So that was the main focus of the video. Is that what were you asking?
Yeah.
Hear me? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
We got another question for Avery. You still there? Looks like it. Can you talk, and you already did, there's some interesting questions on Twitter about the difference between photographs and video and whether you'd studied that and the content of the two. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, and I appreciate that one being pointed out. So in this particular study, we're only looking at still images, although when we went through the sampling procedure, we did encounter several videos or GIFs, so moving images. And what we've started to see, at least in some of our research, is a trend upward, especially on Twitter, of videos, including live stream through sites like Periscope, of actual cancer experiences. So what it's like to sit in a chair and receive chemo for several hours, what it's like to be in the doctor's office, and in one case, one extreme case, what it's like to actually receive a diagnosis, which is a pretty surreal thing to look at. But for us, looking at the visuals, because it's sort of a first of its kind self-representation of cancer study on Instagram, it's a first step, but it's clearly not the last one. And what we want to do is build from this into moving images that include short videos, under 15 seconds, as well as those that might have a link to longer videos and testimonials, because there's power there, right? There's power to share experiences. There's power to create a community, to be communal. There's power to give social and emotional and even informational support through those videos. Videos themselves, especially on YouTube, which actually gets more posts than Instagram right now on a daily basis, can be extremely connective, extremely powerful, and on the downside of that, in some ways, they can provide either misinformation or can lead to assumptions that the experiences we're seeing are real for everyone, right? So there's also some caution there, but I think it's a really interesting and emerging area that we have to focus on.
All right, thank you very much. Looks like we're out of time. We'll shoot it back to Shana Meganck in the studio.
Thank you, everyone. We have to leave it at that. Please continue the discussion on Twitter with the hashtag VCU Global Health. We will take a short break, and we will have our next panel at 11:45. And the live stream for that will be available on our symposium website. So, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye.